quick flash event. We are hoping that it's a conversation that continues with key stakeholders. I'll start off with introducing myself. My name is Edemekong Uyo. Everyone calls me Eddie. I'm the Regional Head of Marketing for Cultural Engagement in Sub-Saharan Africa for the British Council. So you're officially welcome to my office space. And I do have a few colleagues in the room. British Council colleagues, can you just wave and say welcome to our guest? Thank you. The thing with British Council is once you're a British Council staff, once you've been a British Council staff, you're always a British Council staff. So Tola, you're right in the right place by waving. And then we have a very special guest that wants his voice to be heard. Welcome. Thanks very much for coming. Today we're having this very important conversation, Executive Roundtable on Diversity. The theme, Inspiring Inclusion for Africa's Super Women, people living with disabilities. So even though the theme does have women in it, I'm very happy to see the men in the room. Women, we cannot have conversations about women without the men in the room. So please, let's put our hands together for the men that have honored us with their presence today. That's a very half clap. Please, let's put our hands together for the men in the room. Thank you very much. So we're going to start off with welcome remarks by our Regional Director of Higher Education, Sub-Saharan Africa, Adetomi Shoyinka. Please, let's put our hands together for her.
Thank you, Eddie. Good morning, everyone. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the British Council. As Eddie has said, my name is Adetomi Shoyinka. I'm the Regional Director for the British Council's Higher Education Programs, but I'm also privileged to be the Chair of the Advisory Board for When Women Win. So you're welcome here to this event. We're happy to be able to partner with When Women Win again this year. This is the second year running that we're hosting this event as part of our celebrations for International Women's Month, not Day, okay? So as we round out the month, what a befitting way for us to, close things down. The work that we do at the British Council, equality, diversity, and inclusion is central to it. So this conversation is really, really important to us. I won't take up too much of your time because I know that, you're here for a different purpose, not to hear me go on and on for the next couple of minutes. So I will say once again, welcome. I hope you take away, the best from this conversation. I hope you engage with us. Take the time after the discussions have happened to link with people, network, and we hope to be able to continue to support this area of work. We hope to be able to continue to network and engage with you going forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, Tommy's partly signed the check to have this happen. So please, let's put our hands together. Thank you, Adetomi Shoyinka. Like Tommy mentioned, the British Council is not hosting this by itself. We are actually working with a very formidable partner, When Women Win. We did this last year, and we're doing this again this year. Hopefully, we are also looking at having some interventions within the year and not just wait for just the Women's Month, because this is an important conversation to have consistently through the year. So to welcome us again, this time from the perspective of When Women Win, I'm introducing the Executive Director, Motola Uyibanjo. Welcome, Motola.
Thank you so much, Eddie. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Such a pleasure to welcome everyone here. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for being in the room. It's great to see both new and old faces here. Thank you so much. Interestingly, my aunt, my mom's junior sister, she was speech impaired. And so she could make sounds, but she couldn't form words. And so for most of her life, she spent it, because it was, my daughter says, Mommy, what did you guys do in the olden days? So let me just say, in the olden days, when it was my mom's time, there weren't so many interventions and support for people living with different disabilities. So she spent most of her years in-house, basically surrounded by family, loved ones who loved her and cared for her. But she really couldn't extend beyond the home. And for me, when we started having this conversation about what topic should we go for this year, and we started to talk about inclusion for Africa's superwomen, I found it very powerful, because I started to ask myself, what could have been the possibility of her life if she had more opportunities, like the ones we're going to be talking about today. So I'm really excited about the conversation. And when Women Win, we aim to elevate the voices of women. And I'm really thankful to the British Council for supporting us last year, this year. Yes, a round of applause. Thank you so much. And looking forward to the conversations, looking forward to learning from people who know better, and trusting that we'll be able to leave here with some really strong action points that we can take forward to make sure that the workplace is a better place for our superwomen. Thank you very much.
Truly superwomen. We know that we know the challenges that come with being a woman in this climb. Challenges that come when you decide to take up a career. Extra challenges that come when you're a woman living with disability in a career. So because of all those different levels of limitations, this conversation is incredibly important. And to set us the tone of the conversation today, we're going to play a short video that we put together showcasing the superwomen we're talking about in sharing their own lived experiences. Technical team, are we ready? The video? Great, thank you.
I identify as a blind lady. I have been living with this impairment since 2007.
The kind of disability I'm living with is called spinal cord injury.
I live with a disability called cerebral palsy.
I have an 11-year-old daughter, beautiful daughter called Oluwalonimi Ainde. She's living with cerebral palsy.
I have cerebral palsy myself.
What inspires the work I do is my passion for helping children read. Irrespective of being a person with a disability, I didn't want that to stop me, because even before the disability, I was already a teacher. So I've been teaching for over 12 years on the wheelchair now. That was why I had to adopt the means of teaching children online.
What inspires you to keep on pushing and going forward? My mom.
I continue to work after some rehabilitation and with support from my organization. But the biggest challenge I faced as I continued to work was mindset.
One of the challenges I face, being a career mom and a mom of a child with disability is currently I still do my children's school runs in the morning and in the afternoon. I can't just send anyone, trying to get her out of the wheelchair to the car. I would love to monitor that.
One of the biggest challenges I had as an employee in Nigeria was lack of accessibility. So when I say accessibility, the lack of accessibility to transportation system to even get to work. Nigerian public transport system is not designed for people with movement disability.
We find it very difficult to be able to access lots of things in the workspace. I had to sometimes go back to the house to use the restroom and come back to school. It was not convenient.
A lot of organizations recruit online these days. Can the average person with a disability access your recruitment portal, whatever it is? If I'm visually impaired, can my screen reader read it?
And then their lack of belief in the fact that I can still bring value to the organization even though I now have an impairment.
Of course, yes. My disability has affected my chances of getting a job in the past, because I went for an interview and the man that was interviewing me asked me if I could do the job. And I said, if I could go to school, then I could do the job. They say people with disability as a burden to the organization.
I remember going to my daughter's school one day and her caregiver was like, oh, she cried during school today. So I asked her, why did she cry? And she was like, she wanted to join the dance club. If she says she wants to join the dance club, then let her join the dance club. I mean, she doesn't have to do it like how other children are doing it, but she can, you can push a wheelchair, she can throw her hands, she can kick her legs. That is inclusion.
My mom would always say to me, you don't have anything else to sell but your brain. Like for your remaining siblings, if push comes to shove, they will do manual labor. You can't walk because with which legs do you want to do the manual labor, which hand safe? So the only thing you have going for you that you're going to sell is this brain that God has given you. So we had better invest in this brain so you have something to sell for your future.
Organizations can help, persons with disabilities in several ways. Number one is as simple as having a ramp.
By making sure the environment is conducive, there are friendly staff who understand what disability means.
I'm going to a place where I need to use a switch, light switches. They are not accessible. I have to always call someone. Sometimes I don't want to call anyone. I want to do these things myself. So I believe all workplaces should, modify structures and make things accessible so that we can do them ourselves. It's not always we want people to assist us in doing these things.
My advice to young women who, with one sort of impairment or the other, who is starting their career is your talent is undeniable. You have a value that you are bringing to that organization that you aspire to work with.
And dress very well, because how you dress is the way they approach you.
Try to socialize. I see that a lot of people with disability find it difficult to socialize because they feel, I don't want anyone to see me. But then that's where depression sets in, okay?
For the places that you like, that do not have inclusive statements in the way they announce opportunities in their organization, still apply. You might be the person that would make them start their inclusion journey.
Thank you very much. I want to use this opportunity to say thank you to all who participated in that video. If there's anything I'm taking away, it's what Bukola said about this shouldn't be the journey of people living with disability, it should be everybody's journey, because we're all just one incident away. Like Dolokpa reminded me earlier this morning, literally one incident away. To follow up with our program today, technical team, do we have Gabriel on the line? So while putting this program together, one of the things that we said was what data is available for women who are living with disabilities in the workplace. I decided to do a bit of research work led by my colleague, Gabriel Akpabio, who is from our Global British Council Insights team. He's based off in Abuja, so he's supposed to be dialing in at this point. Is he able to? Is Kainde Adolo in the room? I haven't seen her this morning. Not yet. Okay, so I think we'll just move on while we wait for the technical team to get Gabriel on the line. Is available? Okay, great. Over to Gabriel Akpabio. Hello, Gabriel, can you hear us?
Hello?
Great. Gabriel, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, but we are yet to see you.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Actually,
we can
my
see you
camera
now.
is on. You can hear me and you can see me. Okay, fantastic.
Yes.
I just want to check. Would you like me to start my presentation now or is just to introduce?
You can go ahead with the presentation. You are live, so the whole room is watching you now.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. All right, let me start. Just give me a minute to start sharing my screen, please.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Please just do let me know when you can see it.
It's coming up, I think, but it's not up yet. Now it's up. Go on.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Eddie. Thank you so much. I really love that video, and I really love the phrase that this is everyone's journey, right? I take personal notes on that. So I'll start with a quick introduction. My name is Gabriel Akpabio, and I am part of the People Insight team. And basically, our role is to help the organization, take better people decisions using data. So today I'm talking about a quick presentation on sex and disability in sub-Saharan Africa. I know some people might say, why are you not using gender rather than sex? But with sex, we are referring to the biological characteristics of male and female. And again, as you will know, gender is more of a social construct. So we'll stick to sex for now. So this was done as a desk research, and basically we did a desk review of disability publications across sub-Saharan Africa. And one of the key findings that we got from this research was that there is a aggregated disability data across the continent. So this particular review just gives us a high-level summary and also recommends that we commission a more detailed research in future. So I'll just go quickly through the presentation to show you some of our key findings. So the first thing we found out was, and which is very, very interesting to us, is that there is actually a prevalence of disability that is higher for females. So basically, females have a higher prevalence of
Hello, Gabriel. We've lost you.
in households where there are multiple children, right? Where there are multiple children of different genders, that household would tend to prioritize.
Hello, Gabriel, can you hear us?
Investing in. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes. So Gabriel,
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we lost connectivity for like 2 minutes. Do you mind just starting the prevalence of disability?
Okay, I can start.
Yeah. So the prevalence of disability higher for females.
Okay, fine. Okay. Absolutely, and thank you very much for that, Eddie. Please,
So I think the connectivity in Lagos office is bad. I like how people see themselves on screen and then react. It's always very interesting. While we wait for Gabriel to come back on, okay.
For males, and that we use to.
Oh, Gabriel has been talking to himself.
Can you guys hear me? I'm just going to. Where's you can't hear me? Okay. People, can you hear me? The technical team.
I think.
I'm just going to have to.
Do we want to pause the presentation and take the keynote address and then come back to the presentation? So can we send a chat to Gabriel, just letting him know that we're having connectivity challenges in the Lagos office. And then we'll take the keynote address and then come back to Gabriel and the presentation. Yeah. So to take the keynote address, I'll be introducing Chika Idoko, our regional lead for EDI. She'll come and explain exactly what all of that means as she comes up. Please, let's put our hands together for Chika.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chika Idoko. I'm the Regional Head of Equality, Diversity, and Inclusion for Sub-Saharan Africa. I'm based in Abuja, Nigeria. Thank you very much for being here with us in person and to come and be part of a really important conversation. It's a pleasure to be here with you today to discuss something crucial that touches the heart of workplace diversity. Not just the workplace, but the wider society as well. And we will be exploring the intersections of identities when we talk about gender and disability. It's said that disability is an open club. Stick around long enough and you'll be part of it. So when we talk about inclusion, it's not just because it's for a select few. It's for all of us. Think about it. You start as a baby, you grow through life, you get old, you need care, you need adjustments. You suddenly realize that it's too steep to climb up the stairs. You suddenly realize that the light switches you can't really reach. So it's for all of us. And just like it was said earlier, the call to action is for all. What is a disability? I think that's a fundamental starting point. And using the UN's definition, long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairment, which in interacting with various barriers may hinder the full and effective participation of individuals in the society on equal basis with others. So there's a comparison. What are those things that hinder the full and effective participation of individuals and persons with disabilities? At the British Council, we adopt the social model of disability, which acknowledges the disabling environment. So it's not the person who is disabled, but the environment disables the individual because we fail to be as inclusive as possible. So when you think about this particular event today, if someone has been unable to get into the building, it's not because of that impairment. The organization has not made the building accessible. So when we begin to shift the mindset, we begin to see opportunities, and those opportunities we need to seize. Women with disabilities face a double jeopardy of discrimination based on both gender and disability. This particular intersectionality magnifies the barriers they encounter in accessing education, employment, healthcare, and their fundamental rights. And when you look at the workplace, according to the International Labour Organization, the employment rate for people with disabilities in Africa is only at about 1.1%, with women comprising disproportionately higher percentage of the unemployed, thus underscoring the emphasis on the workplace. Because I know that within organizations, there are certain shifts that can be made that can make a difference to the lives of individuals and persons with disability at large. Why does the British Council focus on disability inclusion It's part of our strategic objectives. So it's aligned to our identity as a cultural relations organization. We have 6 equality areas of focus. Disability and gender are included. However, we take an intersectional approach to understand how the identities overlap. Because as an individual, standing before you today, what do I look like? A woman. But I'm a woman with caring responsibilities. Do you know if I have a disability? You can't say thank you, because there are hidden disabilities as well. But that's an area that is less spoken about, but we have to be aware of. As I stand here before you, I have caring responsibilities, and within that, elderly parents, young children, I have my religious beliefs. So there are different layers to it. It's multifactorial, and we hope that the start of this conversation allows us to pause, reflect, and think about actions that can be taken. We will be hearing from our distinguished guests, different individuals who have chosen to spend today with us. And on behalf of the British Council, we're immensely grateful. But I don't want us all to just listen, but it's listen with the intent to act. Because even as individuals, we can do something. Think about language. And I'd like to throw a question here. Do we have disabled toilets or accessible toilets? Anyone who's brave enough to respond. Accessible toilets. Now, sometimes the language stops us from even trying because we fear, we are afraid to get it wrong. But I say, please don't let that fear stop you from trying. Because the more we are able to push those boundaries, then we make the world more inclusive for all of us. So it's the accessible toilet because it's been designed to be more accessible, but it's not a disabled toilet because you put a label on it. So these barriers, these are things that are free. You can just say, okay, today, when I leave this place, I'm going to learn a bit more about language around disability inclusion. That's something. That's a start. And I want to just round up by saying, being truly committed to inclusion, any part of it, is not cost neutral. It's not. There is a cost involved, and we must be willing to make that investment. Personally, as organizations, and as a society. I hope that you don't just listen to the conversations as we start the roundtable, but you truly reflect on what can I do? What can I do for a better future for not just myself, my children, my parents, and everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chika. Please let's put our hands together again for Chika. Thank you, Chika. As Chika was reflecting on her caring responsibilities, I was just remembering my uncle. He's currently in his 70s. He built a house about 20 years ago, and he had this flight of stairs all over the place. And suddenly in his 70s, he's saying, why on earth did I put so many stairs in this house? It's driving me nuts now. And to be honest, a part of the house he's actually had to remodel because now he's realized that those stairs are no longer as fancy. He can't get up and quickly down the stairs. But then it's also a reflection of how over time, like Chika said, we will all get there. So why don't we do something now that's impactful, not just for us, but also our children and even our aged parents as we grow older as well. So I think that's a very good thing to reflect on, the fact that Tommy, when did you start wearing glasses? Because we will all get there. It's just being conscious and being deliberate and consistent about that plan to make sure we're as inclusive as possible. That determination, I think, is what makes the costs bearable. Thank you very much, Chika. Thank you very much for a lovely keynote. Oh, please, let's put our hands together again for Chika. Thank you. Okay, I need to check with the technical team. Is our connectivity better? Can we try Gabriel again? I hope he's on standby still. All kinds of things were already registering in my head when he talked about women having more likelihood for disability. I was going to ask why? How? What's happening? You know, really curious to see what the rest of the data says.
Yeah.
Gabriel, are you still there?
Thank you. Eddie, yes, I'm here, Eddie. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you for your patience. The connectivity in the Lagos office is a bit interesting, for lack of a better word. Can you hear us?
Don't worry. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. You are not on the screen yet. Technical team.
Can you confirm? Let me know, Eddie, when you can see my screen.
Okay.
Okay. Eddie, but can you hear me in between?
Yes, we can hear you. We're just waiting for the technical team to project your presentation, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine.
Fantastic. You're up now, Gabriel.
I mean, okay, thank you very much, Eddie. Thank you. And Chika, that was a fantastic keynote speech, as always. So I'll get straight into it. Eddie, you were saying it was quite interesting to you to note that prevalence of disability is higher for females. So what I'll do is I'll just talk about some of the postulations that our research findings showed. So one of the things you notice is that the prevalence of disability being higher for female is consistent. I mean, if you look at the countries that we looked at in sub-Saharan Africa, you can see that it's consistently, the rate of disabilities is higher for females than it is for males, consistently. So some of the postulations include that, you know, when you look at households that have, you know, multiple children of both genders, and perhaps also households that have limited financial resources, you will notice that there's a tendency that they will choose to invest in the earning potentials of the male child. And that that the ripple effect of that might be that the needs of the girl child is left unattended, and over time that might compound to some sort of impairment on their part. There's also the postulation around maternal health, so basically pregnancy and childbearing. So there's the idea that, you know, due to, especially in developing countries, due to things like travel and geographical restrictions, as well as costs and inability for, you know, nursing mothers to access proper health care, that in return could lead to some sort of disabilities that are maternal health related. There's also another postulation around something called IPV, and IPV stands for intimate partner violence. So where one partner, most times the male partner, tends to have controlling behavior, and that might lead to domestic disputes, and in some cases physical tussles that, you know, could lead to injuries and disabilities. And also the research also says that there's evidence that women with disabilities are at a higher risk of being victims of intimate partner violence. So this is something that, I mean, if we're to commission further research, we would like to see, we would like to get more data around, but research suggests that women with disabilities are at a higher risk of being victims of intimate partner violence. Then there's also an interesting postulation around self-reporting. So if you look at the data, most of what we get here is self-reported. So there's this postulation that, that when you look at self-reporting, that women are more likely to reveal that they have a disability than men. So again, it's research, and it's something that we would also like to get get to the meat of the matter by commissioning further research if that moves on. So this is one of the key things we noted, that it's higher for females. And what we also did was we looked at British Council internally. So we looked at the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. And in sub-Saharan Africa, we operate in about 21 countries, divided into 3 clusters: West Africa, South Africa, and East Africa. And when we looked at these 3 clusters and we compared the disability rates for females versus male, it also came out true that females have a higher disability rate than male. So if you look at the West Africa cluster, which comprises of Senegal, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria, Cameroon, females within the female population, they had a 3% disability representation. And for the males, there was 0%. When we looked at South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and some other countries, including South Africa, we found out that the female population, within the female population, they had 2% of them had a disability and none was recorded for males. And then when we looked at East Africa, it was the reverse, where there was no representation of women with disabilities, but we had a 1.1% representation for males. And that 1.1% is actually coming from one country, which is Rwanda. And I think we have an idea as to why that would be the case. So again, when you compare it, female, the rate of disability is higher for females than males. And I also had a colleague sort of do a quick check globally, and she reported back that even when you compare across other regions like Europe, South Asia, East Asia, that it does seem that female disability rate is higher than it is for males. So that came out strongly from our research. The second thing that also came out was that rural dwellers are more likely to be disabled. So if you compare people that are rural dwellers to urban dwellers, and we compared this across a number of countries, consistently, with the exception of South Africa, but consistently, people that are rural dwellers were more likely to be disabled than men. And again, one of the things that the research is suggesting here is that the issue of proximity or access to healthcare might be an issue. So rural dwellers tend to live farther away from healthcare centers that can offer quality healthcare than it is for urban dwellers. So there's something around a geographical restriction, cost restrictions, and also just being able to access qualitative care that will make rural dwellers have a higher chance of being disabled than urban dwellers. So I think that is also something interesting to reflect on during your roundtable, in terms of maybe this might guide your approach to thinking around ways we can be more inclusive when we are program planning and all of that. Another thing that also came out from the research was that males with disabilities tend to have a higher representation in the workforce than females. And I also just at this point note that generally the employment rate of people with disabilities are below that of the overall population. So if you look at a country like Zambia, or let's say South Africa, the employment rate for persons living with disabilities is 12%, while the employment rate of the general population is 45%. So generally, people with disabilities tend to have a lower employment or labor force participation rate than the general population. And even with that, there's this added layer that then says that males with disabilities tend to have higher representation in the workforce than females. So when we looked at some research that was commissioned by the World Bank, they basically had 2 categories. They looked at low-income countries and high-income countries. And for both low-income countries and high-income countries, because they did this research across, I think, 7.
connectivity again. So it appears we've lost Gabriel again. Gabriel, can you still hear us? I think we've lost Gabriel again. Gosh, just when the presentation was getting more interesting.
Network.
Gabriel, can you hear us? Are you back on?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Go on.
Oh, all right, let me just quickly start wrapping. Okay, thank you very much. Apologies, everyone. Network is always an issue. But if you can hear me, the point I was making here is that, firstly, employment rates for people with disabilities are below that of the general population. And then even within that particular blocker, you still have this extra layer that says that males with disabilities tend to have higher representation in the workforce than females with disabilities. So when we looked at this World Bank research that they did, they basically divided it into low-income countries and high-income countries. And one thing was consistent, which was that if you look at the labor force participation rates of males with disabilities in employment, it's always higher than it is for females with disabilities. So again, in your roundtable, you might want to have a discussion, or again, just within yourselves, like, what could be the cost of these blockers within your immediate environment? Is there anything that you notice as could be the reason why men would have better employment chances? That is, men with disabilities will have better employment chances than women. And again, all of this is something that the data shows. Another thing that we also observed was that disabilities that involve vision, concentration, and mobility are the most prevalent of all disability types. And if you can see my screen here, you'll see that this type of disability is basically broken down by female and male. And consistently for both females and also for both males, you would see that vision, mobility, and concentration are the most prevalent form of disabilities. I think this is a very interesting point, because sometimes when we meet people and they say, okay, we would like to be a bit more inclusive in our employment, in our programming, and in general in planning around access, but we don't know where to focus on because there are different disability streams. Well, I think the data might be useful. It's not saying that this would apply in all contexts, but I think it's useful to know that anything involving vision, mobility, concentrations are where we see most disability types being most prevalent. So, Eddie, I'll just stop here to check. Are you guys still hearing me, or did I fall off, please? You can still hear me. Okay. I'll go on. So this we found very interesting. Now, for us, in terms of further research or taking this forward, we have some likely areas of concentration that we would like to look into. We would like to
Gabriel, I think you're muted.
Hello, Gabriel, can you unmute?
You're muted. Yeah.
I was on, someone muted me. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry, Eddie, did you guys get the part about the disability forms that were most prevalent?
Yes. So we stopped at likely areas of concentration. Or
concentration. Thank you. Thank you very much, Eddie. So in terms of taking this further, right, we would like to look at the possibility of commissioning further research on disaggregated data, whether it's disaggregated by sex, by age, or by socioeconomic background. We'd like to look at that. And that's because when you look at disability data, one of the things that comes out is that people that are from a lower educational background, the prevalence rate is higher for them. People that are from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, prevalence rate is higher. And we also, the research also supports that, as you know, as you go upwards in age, there's a higher likelihood of you being disabled. And it goes back to the points you made earlier, Eddie, around, I think, was that your uncle that built that house that had lots of stairs? And then as he aged, he didn't realize that, okay, I had too many stairs here. But, these are factors that do impact on if a person has a disability or not. So we'd like to sort of commission more research, disaggregated data, by the way, to see how does this apply? Do we notice similarities? Are there huge gaps when you look at it by sex or by age? So we'd like to know more about that. We'd also like to look at things like percentage representation of females with disabilities in both formal and informal work, and also maybe to look at if there's any pay gap disparities between persons that are living with disabilities and the general population. There's another point we also like to focus on, and again, these are all likely areas of consideration, is what percentage of women with disabilities are in political or leadership positions. And when I was having a conversation with a colleague, they pointed out the fact that if you look at the previous administration and this administration, you would hardly see any political appointment that is of a female with disability. Rather, you would mostly see political appointments that are males with disabilities, which goes back to one of the earlier points that I mentioned. So again, we'd like to get into this a bit more, understand what are the drivers, are there any factors, and also to look at things like general labor force participation rates disaggregated by sex. What are the drivers? Is there prevalences that we should be aware of? And also finally, just to say that in your deliberations, in that roundtable discussion, you can also think of, are there other areas based on your experience that you would like us to narrow down, you would like us to focus on? Are there any areas, data points of interest that you think would be useful in us, understanding a bit more around disability inclusions and how we can, mainstream it further? But I'll just stop here. And just to say that these were the major points that we found out, and that we hope you found this points interesting and that it will be useful for your discussions. Thank you very much.
Very much, Gabriel. With all the technical challenges, we still went through the presentation. So thank you for your resilience and tenacity that we all need to operate in this environment. Thank you very much, Gabriel. But I think he's set a very interesting foundation to the conversations that we'll be having here today. Before we go into the key conversations, I'll invite in Kehinde Adolo. Oh, Kehinde, you're in the room. Great. Please let's put our hands together for Kehinde. She's going to give us a spoken word piece based on the theme of the session today. Please let's put our hands together for Kehinde as she comes up.
Good morning or good afternoon, wherever our viewers may be watching around the world. Thank you so much for the invitation to the British Council and When Women Win. It's always a pleasure to be here. And every International Women's Day, I always have a theme for the women. And this year's theme is Tag the Spotlight. And it's so interesting to know that women, have been on the spotlight lately for very positive and inspiring things. So I'm happy to be here and tell the superwoman, this is for you. And it goes like this. We champion inclusion. We're designed for connection, multiplication, participation, and not division. We champion inclusion. We're beyond mere beauty. We embody value. We're designed for inclusion because we're balancing multiple roles in the family, in the home, as wives. We balance and we also champion inclusion because we're seeds for the future. We plant for procreation and germination. So inclusion is our gift because we add value. We're a breath of fresh air. I know that women are. We support and we're passionate about enriching lives. Inclusion is our commitment, is our right, is our moment for change So women, no more begging, no more yearning, no more pleading, no more barely thriving or surviving. You are the light. You don't need permission to shine. So don't hide it. So I'll tell you this. Let your brilliance shine unabashedly. Let your talent speak unashamedly. Let your creativity reveal you unapologetically. You are deserving, worth loving, manifesting greatness. Superwoman here and all around the world. You are the spotlight, so shine. Thank you.
Thank you, Kehinde. Thank you so much for that. For a moment, I actually believed I could physically fly. Thank you. That's the power of words. Thank you very much, Kehinde. I think that's really powerful, just reminding us of who we are inherently as people and women in this space. Because we have a little bit more time, while we wait for the regional director to join us, I don't know if he's online yet. 12, okay. So while we wait, do we go ahead with the panel? Any reflections on Gabriel's presentation? I think that would be a good... Okay. Any reflections on Gabriel's presentation? Any initial thoughts? Okay. Someone is already doing it. Yes, please. Just introduce yourself. Tell us. Yeah. Sorry, something I forgot to mention. We are joined by people from around the world. I've gotten a few messages. I'm actually watching you on live stream. So please introduce yourself, build some context. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Ola Dulupo. I'm from Boom Radio NG. So I won't call it a question, but I wanted to ask why during his presentation it was going on about, and obviously he had data to back it up, why more women were disabled than men. And I would like to ask if there's like a scientific thing to it. Does it have to do with our chromosomes as women? Does it have to do with what specifically brings that? And I think it's a conversation that needs to happen. If it is something that probably can be checked, even if it's from pregnancy or maybe as small girls, things that maybe can be done so that to reduce this thing, because obviously it is a thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's an open... I'm equally as curious as you are. It was the exact same thing. I said, why is it that women have more propensity for disability? But I don't know if there are any thoughts in the room. Why is it that more women seem to have disabilities than men in those countries? Any initial... There are postulations at this point. Oh, there are hands up behind. Oh, Toby, over to you. We need a roving mic. Thank you, people. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, I just wanted to point out that in his presentation, Gabriel did speak to the reasons, and I will just reiterate some of the things that he did say. First of all, some of the things that increase, the incidence of disability for women is that whether we like it or not, women bear the bigger burden of care in households. So when you start from caring for babies and young children, and then when family members are, say there's an ill family member, 80% of the time, who's going to do the caring? That's the woman. And then women they also have the burden of care for elderly family members as well. So over time, that continued burden actually leads to prevalence for disability. And of course, on pregnancy and childbirth, there's a running joke that says there's a reason that Yorubas would greet you when you have a child. Like, it's literally like you literally just went through the valley of the shadow of death. And so when you come out on the other side, they greet you specially. Because yes, there's so many quote unquote dangers with childbirth that are disabling. I know people, I have friends who actually, from having their children, have lifelong disabilities. I have a friend today who has high blood pressure, which she had from pregnancy, and it hasn't gone away. That baby is 16. I have another friend who had diabetes in pregnancy. It hasn't gone away. She's managing that. She's probably going to manage it for the rest of her life. Yeah, the baby is probably an adult now. So there's so many of those factors that lead to disability being more prevalent in women than men. Also, he also spoke to the fact that women are more quick to report or quote unquote admit disability than men are. So if a man can get away with hiding a disability, he will. A woman, not so much. We will say something. And so that's why it then seems like women are self-reporting disability more than men are doing.
That's a very interesting perspective. What that means is that there might be more men, but they're just hiding it. That's an interesting perspective. Okay, I'll take her, then you, then the lady.
Okay, so mine is just, I don't know if I should call it a comment or a quote. My name is Grace Jerry from the Inclusive Friends in Abuja. In all of what he is saying, and of course past experience, I just know that patriarchy does not know disability. Either does not know disability or has completely ignored disability. And that's why there is more representation of men with disabilities than women, because of the whole patriarchal, issue that we face and we see in Nigeria. The truth of the matter is that a man with a disability would rather be given an appointment or would have a political or an elective position than a woman. And that all brings us back to the fact that patriarchy has become blind to disability.
That's an interesting perspective. I think while Gabriel was presenting, I was having a chat with my colleague Busayo, and we said, well, if you're talking about women in career, for example, the amount of women that get into career are actually lower than the men. So it starts off from there and builds this whole higher. That's why you get more men in the boardroom, right? So it's how many people are we letting in the door to give them a chance to start? Yes, you want to say something?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Sanusi Fauza Tolubukola, and from the discussion, I just want to add to what she said, that why is it that women are more inclusive? Personally, my own disability is invisible, and it is lupus. So it's actually triggered by my hormonal system when I started my childbirth. And so there are some disability that will come just naturally. And the world don't know about some of these things. Lupus, I have a community of lupus warriors now from childhood. So there are questions like, how can we test for this at early stage? A lupus warrior cannot do a lot of things. I want to walk, but I'm induced by stress. So there's somebody that has lupus that don't even know. We have triggers, and we keep being wrongly diagnosed. I had 10 years of wrong diagnosis, so you can imagine what people are going through. So I think we should look at some diseases that are not sane. There are a lot. I can't stand for long. I can't sit for long. I can't do anything for long. So it's an invisible disability that people don't even know about. So we need researches into things that happens to women at birth. It's a reproductive disease. And then men too do have it now too. And it is worse in men. It is the ratio 9-1. So I think, 9 women, out of every 10 people, we have 9 women and 1 man. But it is worse in men. So thank you.
I think that's really a really interesting perspective you put to it. I think we had a conversation with Toby earlier about invincible disabilities, and it's something that we need to start having a conversation, at least a conversation on. The lady behind you first, and then we'll take you last.
All right. Thank you very much. My name is Thelma Osuhor. I am Operations Director at GE Vernova, General Electric. but I'm also the DEI leader for Sub-Saharan Africa as well. And thank you very much, British Council, for putting this together, but also inviting people like us to listen and have those conversations. I think one thing I've taken away already is the way Chika phrased, sometimes it's not about the individual being disabled, but the organization really failing to enable. So if there's something I've taken out today, that's the primary thing. I think I was curious about, so I know that the research that Mr. Gabriel Akpabio worked on was on Africa, but I want to understand how that compares to what we see elsewhere around the world. What does that look like? I know that in other parts of the world, more than likely, there are more studies and data generated already. So it's some curiosity to understand what does that compare to, and how can we sort of draw threads between both, and if there are things we need to be looking at differently in the region. So it's just something I think would be interesting for our dialogue.
Fantastic. I think that's something we've noted, and we'll be taking on. I'm nicely looking at Chika to say, Chika, they're giving you more work. But I think absolutely, like I mentioned, we are not stopping at just this. This was for us to even scan the space and see what data is available. But absolutely, there's a lot more digging that I think needs to happen as a follow-up to that presentation. Do we have Moses ready? The regional director. Okay, so while we wait to get confirmation from technical team, please. The mic, roving mic. Oh, he's not here there, okay.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Tejumade Tejosho, and I work in impact measurement and management. So I just wanted to lend my voice to the conversation that has started, but particularly what the amazing lady had said about something I didn't even know about before I came here today. But I wanted to reiterate that a lot of things that cause disability that Chika had mentioned are not things that you typically would see. People are dealing with these things, but you don't know. Some of these things are caused by activities that we human beings, we exercise. I was to be part of a research that was regarding the effects of open defecation and how much it affects women. So I wanted to make mention of that to say, you know, we have menstrual health and all these type of things. I don't have all the numbers yet now, because I worked on that about 2 years ago. But it's just to state that when we do not provide accessible toilets for women, you know, the dangers, it affects women more. When women are in environments that where open defecation is more practiced, these things cause diseases in them, especially for younger women who, you know, get into marriage at a very early age and all of these things. So this is one thing that we can take out of here today to determine and agree within ourselves not to practice open defecation, because it causes things that have ripple effects in the dangerous aspect for women. And these are the things that can increase the statistics about disabilities and the other things that we're speaking on.
Thank you very much. That's a very interesting dimension. I guess that's one of the reasons why we are hosting this, to hear the diverse perspectives and also encourage our own learning. I'm personally taking away from this session going to dig more about lupus and how it affects women through production, because it's complete news to me. I don't know if Moses is online now. So we're waiting on our regional director, Sub-Saharan Africa. Okay. Sorry, what's playing back? Okay. Okay. So while we wait for our regional director, Sub-Saharan Africa, Moses Anibaba, I'm going to start off the panel conversation. I won't be hosting, with introducing our moderator, Fabia Ogumeko. Please come up, Fabia. She's the Executive Director for Women in Successful Careers. Please come up, come up, come up. Please put your hands together. As you can see, the conversation is already happening. Have I mixed it up?
No, just except I'm not the Executive Director of Women in Successful Careers. Not for the last 1 year, at least. I am on the advisory board, though, so I'll take it. Okay, so good. Is it afternoon yet? I think it's just afternoon. Good afternoon, sir. Okay. All right, okay. So we might be interrupted once the regional director comes on, but we will push forward with the conversations. Right, so we've heard quite a lot already so far, and it's been quite insightful. Would you agree? Yes. And a lot of learning has already taken place. A lot of great context has been set, and we've already, heard a lot of guidelines and data, which has already begun to spark our thinking and even some takeaway concrete actions. So I'll just reintroduce myself. My name is Fabia Ogumekon, pronounced Fabia. And I'm a development consultant and a women in leadership advocate. Persons with disabilities, and I've been privileged to have been correct talking about is language and the language of disability. My initial opening statement had persons living with disabilities, and I was corrected. And it might sound like something small, but it does make a difference, and some of our esteemed panelists will explain why. So persons with disabilities are frequently not considered potential members of the workforce. And women, like we've heard from and seen from the data, with disabilities face even more difficulties accessing the job market compared to their male counterparts and other women living with disabilities. We've seen from the data that 53% of males with disabilities are more likely to be employed compared to 20% of females. In the panel the conversations, we will explore why. Perception, fear, myth, and prejudice continue to limit the understanding of disability in workplaces. And this statement is an extract from the Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities, Nigeria, a LinkedIn post. So our conversation will aim to accelerate progress and bring us closer to creating a more inclusive work environment, hopefully, and will encourage the growth and progress of all women, including persons with disabilities. So our objectives for our conversation: we hope to learn from the experiences and perspectives of PWDs to challenge misconceptions and stereotypes. We hope to recognize and celebrate the achievements of people with disabilities as inspirations that they are, and you will see why as the panel conversations progress. And we would also like to discuss and identify solutions to help inform mechanisms for supporting and empowering people with disabilities in the workplace. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists and invite them to please come up on stage. Mr. Kola Olubodi. Is he here? Okay. Can I just introduce him? Okay. So Kola is an adversity quotient expert. He's an author, a public speaker, coach, and counselor. He is widely acclaimed as Africa's leading background check expert and the pioneer of the background check industry in Nigeria. I think that deserves a round of applause. He also serves as the inaugural chairman for the Society of Professional Background Screeners in Nigeria and authored the impactful book Through It All, memoir of many trials and triumphs chronicling his life challenges. You're welcome, sir. And I think we will pause to hear from the regional director.
So we have our regional director, Sub-Saharan Africa, Mr. Moses Anibaba, joining us from, I think, Nairobi. He's going to correct me now if he's not in Nairobi. Hi, Moses.
Hi.
Eddie here.
Hello. Hi. Hi, Eddie. Hi.
Okay, so you're live, Moses.
Okay. Well, yeah. Good morning to you all, and greetings from Nairobi, a great city. My name is Moses Zanibaba. I'm the regional director for British Council across Africa. It's great to be here, and I'm sorry I can't join you in Lagos. But that's how it is. But I just wanted to say a few words. I know our moderator already started introducing the panelists. Just to say thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. You know, we're here to mark the International Women's Day with the focus on investing women, accelerate progress as well. And I just wanted to just raise one or two things that, you know, people with disability continue to be underrepresented in society. We see it across all nations, and I have the opportunity of really traveling across Africa, despite legislation and the framework. And the British Council Equality and Diversity and Inclusion is an important part of our remit as a cultural relations organization. We take it and we have a particular focus as well on disability, race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic background, which is a cross-cutting theme as well. And as an organization and as a region, this is something that we pay particular attention to as well, on women empowerment, the elimination of discrimination as well, and that achievement of equality between women and men. And, you know, I know today is really about the discussion and actions that we're going to be taking. And we've chosen at the British Council as one of our initiatives to actually do this and a focus on women with disability, but from particular marginalized groups as well. So with a focus on marginalized groups as well. And that's something that we've taken seriously across the region. And maybe I'll stop sort of reading from my notes that I put down here, but just to give some examples that really weighed on me. About three years ago now, going on 4 years ago, I was in Sudan, and we had a colleague there who we had brought in on an internship program for 3 months, was blind, completely blind from childhood, and she initially worked in our customer service. We were wondering how would this work, you know, and you know, there were lots of things that, you know, we felt were barriers, but you know, actually were not barriers to her as well. And so we were able to adjust you know, our way of working, and really to actually see the real potential of this our colleague. She then went on to get a full-time job at the British Council, did exceptionally well. I even remember meeting the Minister of Education with her, and you know, she was absolutely phenomenal. As it happens to be, she went on to get a scholarship and go to LSE, London School of Economics in the UK. She came out first class, the best project on social enterprise, which she developed as well. And you know, for me, that along, and the other day I was even just listening to watching Dragon's Den, and there was this lady entrepreneur on who was autistic, and you know, and she was putting together her presentation, and it was fantastic as well. She got funding as well. But you know, for me, I mean, imagine, you know, if our prejudices, our own assessment, our lack of knowledge, our predispositions, you know, how that really could have thought and curtailed that potential that is out there as well. And, you know, I believe that, you know, we all have some form of disability. I mean, look, I mean, you know, lots of it is all hidden as well. And, you know, we would be not only hurt, but we would not achieve our full potential if people viewed it as a barrier to us achieving as well. So, you know, just the thought of being able to the sort of short-circuiting somebody's future and better future because of the way we see things, for me, weighs on very heavily as well. And I have sons, they have all different strengths and whatever as well, and I wouldn't want anybody to actually, because of something that they probably don't fully understand, actually, kind of cut their potential as well. So I really believe that we have a responsibility as leaders, individually and collectively, to really open our eyes and support the actions that we need to take as well to this. And I know that there's so much joy and satisfaction when you actually kind of see this as well. And secondly, that we really have we're in a privileged positions to not only take but to lead action. And I know it's a journey, it starts, but I think if we can even just start with the smaller things, and we started with small things in our offices and with our focus on that marginalized group and women in particular, and again it's growing as well. So on that point, I don't want to speak for too long, just to say, look, thank you very much indeed, for attending and for your commitment to this. And I believe that we can continue to make strides in this journey and really affect the lives of people that some of them may not thank you for it, some will do, and I can tell you that there's no greater achievement than to actually kind of see the potential of women with disability being really fulfilled and to really open our eyes. So thank you very much, and I hand back to Eddie and the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moses. Thank you. It's been a crazy day for Moses, so squeezing in that time and just showing up for us, we are really, really super grateful. Thank you, Moses. I'll now hand over to Fabia. I promise I won't make the mistake.
I think we're both from the South, so, it shouldn't be hard for you, Eddie. Thank you. And I hope you haven't been feeling lonely up there, Mr. Kola. We're coming to join you. We're coming. Okay. So I'm going to ask Dolapo Agbede to please come to the stage. Dolapo Agbede is a DEI expert. She's a transitions coach and a tech and neuroscience enthusiast. Thank you. With over 19 years of work experience in key sectors in the economy, including ICT, payment solutions, telecommunications, talent management, and sustainable business administration. Dolapo is a disability inclusion advisor at the Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities, JONAPID, the umbrella body of all disability groups in Nigeria, where she leads multi-sector engagements on mainstreaming productivity opportunities for talents with disabilities. She sits on several boards and coaches via her Thriving in Transitions program. Welcome, Dolapo. I'll invite Toby Loba Ajayi next. Toby has over 14 years of experience working with various organizations in the disability management sector in different countries. She holds a degree in law and was called to the Nigerian bar in 2008. She holds a master's degree in international law. She started by working on disability policy as a member of the Nigerian Vision 2020 policy drafting team, and went on to work with various NGOs in a quest to improve the lives of persons with disabilities. In March 2017, she launched the Let's Get Cerebral Palsy Kids Learn Foundation to promote inclusive mainstream education for children with cerebral palsy in Nigeria. And this was born out of a realization that children with cerebral palsy were being excluded from mainstream education in the school systems in Nigeria. Welcome, Toby. I'd now like to invite Madame Lois Alta. Lois is a diversity and inclusion expert, local and global disability advocates, inclusive education advocates, and she is also a human rights defender. She is the first Black woman with a disability named a Young Global Leader of the World Economic Forum in Africa and Nigeria 2017. I think that deserves a round of applause. She broke records. She's a record breaker by being the first woman with a disability who ran for the House of Representatives in 2019 amongst 4,080 candidates in Nigeria. Lois is the founder of Cedar Seed Foundation, Network of Women with Disabilities, an ability platform, Women on Wheels, Multipurpose Cooperative Society, and the Disabled People in Leadership Initiative. She is a member of the Presidential High-Level Advisory Council, HILAC, on women and girls with disabilities. Please welcome Lois. And last but not the least, joining us online, and I would need a confirmation that indeed Razak is online, Razak Adekoya. Razak is a development economist and disability inclusion specialist. He currently works at Site Savers as a program development advisor for the Economic Empowerment Portfolio and supports the organization's programs and projects across several countries in Africa and South Asia. He has consulted widely for a lot of international organizations, including Ford Foundation, International Organizations for Migration, and of course, Save the Children. Among others, he's also an author of 4 books, a One Young World Ambassador, and co-founded the African Volunteering Week. Welcome, Razak. Is he online?
Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can, Razak. Thank you. So welcome, distinguished panelists. And I mean, I feel like I'm already so inspired. And as you can see, even just from reading the profiles, and I think that that was quite important, our panelists, like many people with disabilities, are amazing and doing amazing things and haven't actually let their challenges hold them back. And so we'll be kicking right into the conversation. So I'd like to start with you, Lois. Thank you for being here. And thank you for your commitment to the cause of women's rights and the rights of women living with disability. Women with disability. Women with disability. And as we have heard and seen from the data, they are often the hardest hit by discriminatory practices. So I'd like you to share with us, from your extensive experience on the field, what you, in your opinion, are some of the unique barriers and obstacles that people with disabilities, particularly women, encounter when trying to enter the workforce, seeking employment opportunities, and then obviously just trying to advance their careers in the workforce. And I'll give you 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Fabia. My name is Lois Auta, and I'm speaking on behalf of women and girls with disabilities. As we all seen in the research presented by Gabriel, and even the environment that we live in on a daily basis, women and girls with disabilities have a lot of peculiarities, the needs and the challenges, the barriers are different from the male counterparts. Being a woman with disability, and lastly, the barriers. And these barriers could be infrastructural, it could be institutional, and attitudinal. The perception from the public seeing women with disabilities and they treat them as third-class citizens. For me, as I always say, women and girls with disabilities are at a 0% level of participation in everything: employment, education, health, and other economic opportunities. Women and girls with disabilities have been sidelined, excluded, and underrepresented in many perspectives. In Nigeria, it is sad that we are still operating on the charity level of human rights. We need to move from charity level to the social inclusion model. And the social model has 4 perspectives: exclusion, segregation, integration, and inclusion. These are the social inclusion models that we have. And as it is, Nigeria is still operating on the integration level of inclusion activities. And moving from social inclusion model to the human right model, what are we doing to ensure this set of people, women and girls with disabilities, are captured, incorporated, and included in all the activities, agenda, policies, and the projects, initiatives, activities, and ideas that we're doing? As we are all seated in this room, how many women and girls with disabilities have you empowered? Today, I am a product of many women, starting from my mother, to Mariam Sani, to Miss Lois Mekori, and many other women that I can call their names right now. I am a product of womanhood. As women, what are we doing? Is it appointive positions? Is it elective positions? According to Section 29 of the Nigerian Disability Act, it is the right of everyone to be treated equally when it comes to employment and training opportunities. Section 30 of the same legal framework also gives women and girls with disabilities to participate actively in the political sphere. Article 27 of the United Nations Convention on the Right of Persons with Disabilities also states that persons with disabilities should be treated equally when it comes to work and employment. We need to have a rethink on how everyone, I repeat, everyone, not minding your disability, your status, and whatever it is, to be carried along and be included in everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lois. Please, can we give her a round of applause? Thank you so much. And I'll just stay with you and just to expand on that point for another 2 minutes. You spoke around moving, and I think that was very poignant, moving from seeing disability as just charity, right? And approaching it from a human rights perspective. Yeah. And you've also begun to speak about that by even sort of referencing the Disability Act. How many of us in the room realize that there is an act called the Disability Act and are familiar with the provisions in terms of how it relates to us and our obligations, even in the workforce? Show of hands. So definitely this conversation is needed, and I think there's already action points. So Lois, you speak around the human, how in practice can the Disability Act, for example, be mainstreamed into organizations? What are some of those provisions that behove on employers, for example, relating to when it comes to, employing people with disabilities? and perhaps some of those considerations that they should take into account. Can you share some of that?
Yes. It is time that we move from exclusion to inclusion, from inclusion to participation, and from participation to representation. And that's when disability comes in, disability policy comes in your organization. I heard General Electric, they are here in the room. Do you have a disability policy in your organization? And other organizations that are represented here. Let's start from disability policy. How many percentage of employment opportunities are you reserving for graduates with disabilities? We are very brilliant people. We have graduates in our midst that are looking for jobs and other opportunities everywhere. How many have you engaged? How many have you employed? How many have you enabled? The 3 E's: engagement, enablement, and employment. Are you practicing the 3 E's? And when it comes to the implementation of the Disability Act, we need to collaborate. SDG Goal 17 talks about partnerships. And I'm proud of what British Council are doing. We need to collaborate with all the duty bearers. National Assembly should set up a committee to follow up on the implementation strategies for the Act. National Commission for Persons with Disabilities also needs to come up with a strategy plan on how this Act will be implemented. I'm proud from the entrance to this place, I was not assisted. I came in independently. Yes, this is what we want to see when it comes to Article 9 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities on accessibility. We need access to infrastructures, to information, communications, and technology. And that was why when she asked me the second question, I started by saying we need to move from inclusion to participation and from participation to representation. We need those percentage to reflect in the work we do on our day-to-day lives of living. So before I drop this mic, I want to ask a question for all of us. Are you a thinker? Are you an implementer? Or are you a funder? British Council is a funder. Grace Jerry and others are implementers. How many organizations like British Council are funding Inclusive Friends Organization, Association, Network of Women with Disabilities? My friend Toby Loba's organization, Let's Cerebral, and our member of the Board of Trustees. I cannot call names. How many are you funding? And who are the thinkers? Who are the implementers?
Thank you.
Leave you with these 3 words. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois. Thank you very much. Powerful. So, Dolapo, I'm coming to you, and it's always a pleasure to hear you speak. And you do so expertly, articulately, and might I add, graciously. You give so much grace to many of us who remain ignorant to some of the challenges that you face and people within your community face. You sit in a unique position of being a person with a disability, and you identify as visually impaired. I'd like to ask you about the language of disability and why it is important that those of us who do not immediately present as living with a disability get that language right, and what is the role of language, in naming and framing, really, in terms of, our approach to care, as some of which Lois has alluded to, our approach to care, provision, and enablement. Why is language important in the first place?
Thank you so much, Fabia. Thank you, British Council. Thank you, my esteemed co-discussants. Why is language important? How did all of us feel at the end of the spoken word that we heard today? I mean, I think I heard Eddie say something like she felt like she was about to fly, right? That's the power of words. So if we even start there, as a person who identifies as a blind lady, and for anyone who's curious, you're thinking, but she has glasses on, right? Who's curious about that? But I am exhibiting my right of choice. I could have chosen to wear dark shades. Would you be more comfortable that, okay, yeah, she's truly blind because the shades are Stevie Wonder style, right? But I've chosen to wear clear glasses because I've been wearing glasses since I was 10, right? And I lost, my journey to tangibly losing sight started in 2007. It was glaucoma. It didn't matter that I was in an multinational expatriate level job with a platinum health cover. What's the use of the health cover when nobody's testing your eye pressures? So this is an opportunity to please say, for every time we do our annual tests, when you are checking you're reading the alphabet, which was that was the only thing they did for me since I was 10. Please make sure your pressures are checked. You can be sure, if I had known, of course I will ask, but I did not know. And so losing sight due to not managing your interocular pressures is preventable by early detection. Now we've gotten that out of the way, and the curiosity is done about, but she's wearing glasses. And the thick ones that she always used to have, right? Okay, so this is how I choose to present myself and to identify. So now, if I am now working with you, and you insist that you need me to look like what you think a blind person should look like, before we can now even get to the meat of why we're even interacting together. Those are the kind of constraints and barriers and mindset battles we deal with every day. As a person with an impairment, why do I look like a blind lady? Come on, yes, no, yes, no. It took yes or no. Please be comfortable, it's fine. Do I look like I'm about to sue you or bite you? So let's have this conversation. So you see, this is part of it. It is that we are so deeply, we are unsure. We don't want to offend. So what would we, if we had a choice, would we rather run away? We would rather not engage. So just because we are unsure, and why are we even unsure? It's not, we are still those people that were raised by people who said impairments must be hidden away. There's a definition of what is acceptable and what is not. And what is different should be hidden. But we are all, I mean, for everybody that is on this panel, maybe not yet, because I pray you live to a ripe old age. And, it's the most important thing is when we choose to show up, accept us. When you are not sure of what to say, ask us. So while you are so worried about what should I say, what should I say, what should I say, you've whipped up this storm within that even when I start to speak, you can't even hear me. Do we understand that? I'm going to, before I pause, bring a scenario in front of us. Persons with little stature, little people, persons with dwarfism, how many of them do we see in the workplace? Because our society somehow has a, do you know where subconsciously we all expect them to be doing skits? Yes or no? Or doing comedy? That is where they belong. Says who? So now, by the time someone with small stature has decided, I want to be different, I want to have this job in a corporate space They've done the work of education. Can you imagine that they were teased all through? You can imagine, right? Can you imagine that they were teased all through? Secondary school, university, NYSC. Can we imagine that they were teased all through? All of us in this room, are we like culprits of people who would have teased them? Who might not have wanted to identify with them? Just because when both of you stand, the person you are talking to is high level to your groin. Is that comfortable for you? Yes or no? It's not comfortable. But if that was a 5-year-old child, would that be comfortable? Yes or no? Because what? That's a child. But now you're dealing with an adult. And just because they present in a way that you are not comfortable with. What I would say about languaging, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. I identify as blind. And I have people who immediately correct me that, don't say that. And I'm like, is it your identity? I understand it's well-intentioned. So in the space of languaging, the perfect guide is whoever you're going to interact with. Ask them, how would you want me to address you? When I refer to you, because of course you will refer to, I mean, even all of us, by the time we go home, you would say, that lady. And then you now pause because you don't want to say that blind lady on the panel. Please feel free to say it. It doesn't make me less. Does it? Do you think it makes it? Does it make me less? No. So we need you in the audience who is so worried. And you get so worked up that in the end, I beg last, it is better not to engage. Please don't. The learning point today is ask us. For us to show up, I mean, we got dressed from home, we've done the work, we've shown up. Believe me, we are ready to engage. We are ready to support you. Understand that we are diversity is present in all of us. Yes, somebody else might want to be called blind, another visually impaired. One might want to wear dark shades, another might want to wear clear, whatever. Another might want to leave their face bare. Accept us. Discuss with us.
Thank you.
We will tell you how to address us.
Thank you. Like I said, articulately put, always articulately put. Nothing to summarize there. Okay, so let me come to Razak. Hi, Razak.
Hi, can you hear me, Fabia?
Yes, I can. Thank you. I can hear you loud and clear. Thanks for joining the conversation. It's great to have you. Just wanted to speak to you about your experience, working as a development economist and disability inclusion specialist. You've had the opportunity of working with organizations like Unilever, Access Bank, Standard Chartered, MTN, and you name them, primarily to mainstream disability inclusion into their sustainability, diversity, and inclusion policies. So in your opinion and experience, what kinds of strategies and initiatives should companies be adopting to promote greater inclusion? Can you hear me?
All right, thank you very much for this. Yes, I heard you clearly. Can you hear me as well? Yes. I can hear you clearly. Can you hear me as well?
Yes, we can.
Just to be sure.
Yes, we can.
I cannot.
Perhaps.
Okay. Fabia, can you hear me? Just say hi. Yes.
Yes, yes, we can hear you. Can you hear me?
All right, I can hear you, so I'll go ahead now. So from my experience, when it comes to private sector companies or multinationals, I think there are about 3 to 4 things in terms of the strategy they've adopted in mainstreaming disability inclusion into their DEI. The first is around leadership commitment. And a topic when organizations, leaders, and I think just one thing that helps you to convince every senior business leaders or exec at that level, it's about what is the benefit for the business. Doing this. And I think that's in which we've tried as much as possible to speak to leaders, private sector leaders, around what's the benefit of inclusion. Let me give a very simple example. Let's run the kind of algorithm of 100 million and the prevalence of people with that number. So I'm using it for example, the financial institution. That they are likely of 3 million out of every 100 between 5 million of that population will have of mobility implemented. Imagine the security doors at our banks today. They are not able to do the environment, or they are not even able to use the ATM machine. That all you've not mainstream your business, you are losing some piece of person to ways that you think through how mainstream this solution. You think around brand and brand equity, leadership coming first. Government is solution.
Hi, Razak.
Is accepting that.
Hi. Sorry, you are breaking. So your contributions are a bit choppy. I'm wondering, do you have your video on? You might want to switch it off just to perhaps stabilize from your side.
Let me turn off my video then. Okay. The video now. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I think it's better. Slightly better. Please carry on. I'll let you know if we still have any challenges. We did hear quite a bit of what you said, but you might just...
Yeah, I'll just recap it. The first one is around leadership commitment and the metrics.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll come back to Razak. Please, if someone could kindly communicate with him so he knows that he's actually sort of offline and we've struggled to hear him. But some of the things, a couple of the points that I think he made is really making the case of the benefit to the business. It feels a bit contraindicative when you think around Lois's perspective around human rights, right? I really should be approaching this from it is a human right that way, and obviously the conversations and trying to synergize and bring everyone on board in terms of one from the human rights perspective, also the business case. So he made that point quite strongly. In approaching business and the advocacy, we should make the business case for inclusion, as we do when we talk about women's leadership generally, right? And then he talked about commitment, and I think I heard that just before he signed off. Hopefully we can get him back. If we could also perhaps suggest that he can chat in some of the points, and maybe that can be read out, worst case scenario. Okay, so let me come to Toby. Hi, Toby. Powerhouse. I think you're really so inspiring. All the panelists are, but in the spirit of intergenerational, conversational perspectives, I want to shout out to you especially.
Thank you.
So let's talk about stereotypes. We talked about language. Let's talk about stereotypes and bias. And, I had asked Dolakwa about language, but I wanted to share your experience of stereotypes and bias. I mean, you're from one of the most revered and learned professions.
Something like that.
Myself being parts of of that profession. Please speak about how, your experience and how you have, overcome challenges, how you have been challenged, first of all, and how these has affected you.
All right. Thank you so much, Fabia. And thank you so much for the British Council for having me. So let's talk about stereotypes. And so when we say stereotypes, what does that mean?
Basically, a stereotype is just an assumption that you've made about a person or a group of people. If you grew up in Nigeria, you probably heard the stereotypes about Ijebu people being stingy. So if you grew up anywhere in the Southwest, you heard that stereotype from when you were a child. Whether or not you ever experienced it, you just heard it. And that stereotype carries, right? The next time somebody hears you are from Ijebu, the next thing they say is, oh, are you stingy? And that's the power of stereotype, right? And for someone who lives with a disability that was, what's the word I'm looking for? That was erased for a very long time, especially in the Nigerian disability community. You see, I remember when we were working on, and Lois would remember this, when we were working on the Vision 2020 committee, remember how nobody ever mentioned cerebral palsy and they would just say, oh, you go to physical disability. Because somehow, it didn't count. And that had been, and at this point, I was a graduate. I had finished at the Nigerian law school and I was still living with an erasure of a condition that I'd lived with all my life. So it was easier for people to say, oh, she just has a physical impairment. It was more comfortable because physical impairments we know. You get, like, we know physical impairments, so we know what to do with them. But this one she's talking about, nah, no. And when I started to really speak up and say, look, this condition is not a physical impairment. It's a developmental disability that actually starts from my brain. The first stereotype is then you're supposed to be stupid. So if you're smart, how are you smart? I'm not even kidding. So it was a how are you smart if you have a brain impairment. And that's why if you follow me, you see me defining cerebral palsy over and over and saying, look, yes, it's a disorder of the brain, but it affects posture and movement. It's not an intellectual disability. The other stereotype is that cerebral palsy is an intellectual disability. This is a stereotype that still carries all around the world till date. So when they want to talk about now that they've decided they want to acknowledge us in the Nigerian disability community, guess what we're called? Intellectual and developmental disabilities. I'm like, excuse me, sir. Do I look intellectually disabled to you? Stop it. And that's the power of stereotypes. Every time I say I have cerebral palsy, I've had public health professionals argue with me to say, are you sure? I'm like, can you see? Because at this point, it's in your face. It can't even be hidden. Like, it's in your face. But you see, there's a stereotype that they've carried that carries from the medical model of disability that says that if you have cerebral palsy, you're supposed to also be intellectually disabled. So the fact that they didn't have a conversation with me, my speech is clear. Like, you can have a conversation with me about any topic and I have information. It's like, are you sure? So you face that stereotype. And so you're constantly defending your right to exist in spaces because you don't fit the stereotype that they hold. Then you're suddenly somehow excluded. So it's almost, oh, when you're talking about cerebral palsy, don't talk to her. I even face that, right? So you're talking about, don't talk to her. Our own is not really cerebral palsy. I've actually heard that said. And that's the power. And again, I don't blame them. It's just the stereotype that has said, oh, if you have this diagnosis, you're supposed to be this. Oh, you're not supposed to be able to speak. You're not supposed to be able to walk. You're not supposed to be smart. And the thing is that you then take, but we don't see how those stereotypes contribute to creating self-fulfilling prophecies of stupidity. I'm sorry. So, because you won't try. Because when you already hold a stereotype that if a child has a cerebral palsy diagnosis, they're supposed to be stupid, you know what you're going to do? When your child has a cerebral palsy diagnosis, you're not even going to try to educate them because they've told you that you can't know. So there's no point. Why should you waste money? And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because you never gave that person an education. So they are 20 years old, but they don't have anything to contribute because they were never given an opportunity to get what to contribute. And that's the thing with stereotypes. And that's why I spend my life correcting and challenging stereotypes. showing that these stereotypes are wrong. Our textbooks, our medical textbooks need to be changed. Our definitions need to be updated. You cannot keep saying that cerebral palsy is the most common disability in childhood when it's a lifelong disability that has no cure. Because what that says is that the medical profession has nothing, they don't know what to do with you the minute you cross the age of 18. Meanwhile, you are still disabled though. But the doctors don't know what to do with you. So it's very interesting. If I walk into a hospital, I'm the one who's telling the doctor what I need. Because the minute he sees me, he's confused. He has never seen an adult with cerebral palsy show up in his clinic. He doesn't know what to do with me. So we need to challenge all our stereotypes, all our assumptions. Because we all run with it. See, all of us run with assumptions every day. So once you run into an assumption, stop yourself and challenge it, especially when it comes to disability. The number of people who have done double takes when they hear me speak is mind-blowing. I love it actually because, you know, when I walk into the room, this disability cannot be hidden. So they've just made the assumption she's not going to be smart. And then I open my mouth and then they do a double take like, what just happened?
Fantastic.
So it's important that we challenge those stereotypes, all of us, as we run into it, because we will, and challenge it every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, please. That deserves an applause. Thank you so much. And I will come back to you to speak about how you've overcome and, you know, just in terms of learning what we can do. But let me give Mr. Olubodi the opportunity to also share his opinions. As a corporate powerhouse, in your own words, in your book, you say in your book titled "Through It All," through your many trials and tribulations, you have still emerged a successful corporate powerhouse. I'll pick it up, sir. Don't worry. Thank you. Can you share with us briefly what some of these challenges that you have had to overcome?
All right. Thank you so much. So nice to be here. The only man sitting in the midst of women. Yes. You said what? Thank you so much. So thank you so much, British Council, and then When Women Win. So nice to be here. My challenges. Of course, I had polio when I was age 2. I'll be 59 this year. So I've lived with it for 57 years. And just like what my darling sisters have been talking about, even in parenting, we get it wrong. You understand? Once you have a child that has disability, something tells you you already have someone that is, you have a liability. Disability is equal to liability, you know. So just manage them. For some parents, just keep them somewhere. When visitors come, hide them somewhere and don't see them. I think that was like the way I started growing up. Of course, I was indulged. Don't let him sweep. He has bad legs. Don't let him fetch water. Let me use it. Don't let him fetch water. Sorry. Don't let him do any house chores. He has bad leg. No, don't send him on any errand. You know. But like I always tell people, my life changed when I was age 8. You know, we went to our village and there was this masquerade festival. And I went out with some of my relatives and we got somewhere and we had this drumming and everybody ran. And then, okay, so we asked, so why are you running? They said, that masquerade is not supposed to meet anybody on the road. All right. So now I know there is a problem. Everyone we left my family compound with ran. Then I was supposed to run. And then I ran. But it was like a snail trying to escape from danger. You know, at first the polio affected my 2 legs. Later the right leg came back to life. The left leg is as paralyzed as it was in 1967, even up till now. So for me to run that day was to hop on the right leg. And since there was, fear in the air, I was just falling over and everything, and I was screaming and crying and just begging people to come and help me. Of course, nobody came that day. I was heartbroken, and that day I told myself, I'm not going to depend on people in life again. I was so young. I'm not going to trust people. I'm not going to put my life in the hands of people so that they can help me. I'm going to make it in life. I will do everything to become what I think I should become in life. Sincerely speaking, that was age 8. I can remember that day just as if it was yesterday. You know, from that day going forward, don't tell me you cannot. Kola, don't sweep. You have bad leg. Let me sweep. Because the day will come, I will need you to help me sweep. And you say, I cannot. So I started doing what they told me I could not do. You know, don't fetch water. Let me fetch. You know, of course, then I don't put on this brace. I'll put the bucket on my head and I walk like this. And by the time I get home, like full bucket is now 1/4. But you know, I always feel proud. I say, yes, I fetched water. You know, so the candle spirit just was leading me on in life. Once you just say, oh, you have disability, you cannot. Something in me will just stand up and say, oh, now I will prove that I can. And that was the way I went on. I remembered.
I want to move you on to your next.
The next, okay. Okay.
So that's actually very important. It deserves a round of applause. The can-do spirit. Right? You could easily have allowed yourself to be indulged, but you took that decision, you know, to fight on. So now I want to talk more from the professional side and professional angle. As the pioneer of the background check industry, with many accolades to your name, from an employer perspective, because you are an employer of labor, but you're also a data and information expert. How can we, you know, we saw some insights today, so we already have begun to see the importance of data, but I want to hear your perspective for how we can deploy data and information and technology in a way that positively supports people with disabilities from your perspective, because we also want to be able to move the conversation to how, you know, those of us in the room in terms of employers can begin to understand why it's important to be more inclusive.
All right, thank you so much. I know Gabriel had spoken so much from the data angle, so I want to try to go there. But as an employer, and then, of course, knowing myself, knowing the stereotype I faced, times I went for interviews. I went for an interview, and immediately I walked in with my walking stick. The panelists looked at themselves and they said, Mr. Lugodi, you'll be out of this place in 5 minutes. You know, they said it in a very polite way, but I knew it was an insult. Of course, I was there 1 hour, and I was the one that was employed. Because I get that every time. So as an employer, I've come to also know, at least from statistics, that people living with disability, just check out everyone that's spoken here. Is any of them dunce? You understand? And in my complaint, we came up with a policy, maybe because we deal with data and we deal with things that have to do with, putting details in things. Number one, we give priorities to ladies in my work. If you're going to deal with anything statistical, please give it to ladies. And then, of course, added to myself, I think we are 5 that have disability in the company. Because I know, just like myself, we are not going anywhere so soon. You understand? They have grown with the company. So when it comes to data information technology, what I've chosen to do is to showcase people living with disability. I have a program called Through It All. And primarily, it's to showcase what people with disability can do. Dolapo has been there, my wife's niece. Toby has been there. Emanuela's husband has been there. I have a lot of people sitting here that have been on that program. That's using technology to let people know that people living with disability are not non-entities. They are not people you are just supposed to push aside. If a person living with disability can start a new industry in this big country called Nigeria, there is nothing another person with disability cannot do. You understand? So that is the area that when it comes to my own advocacy, I want to push people with disability to know that you too work on yourself, work on your mindset, work on your self-esteem. Don't let people call you names and you accept those names. That's not who you are. But once you accept it, you become like that. They say you cannot walk. They say, why are you not doing? They say I cannot walk. Is that who you are? You understand? So, by and large, I think we need to keep changing. What's that language now? The narratives. We need to keep changing it for people to know, more especially when it comes to women. At least I have two wonderful ladies working for me. One of them, at least in the last 2 years, I've been in and out of hospital. And she's been working remotely. And her performance have not dropped one bit. All right, so those are some of the things that need to change now. Even if you're not going to employ us because we cannot maybe climb your steps, we can work from home and we will deliver. So that's the way I want to stop.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you. I don't know if Razak is back online, if his connection is okay. Hi, Razak.
Hi, Fabia. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. And we are hopeful, and it's sounding better. So just to bring you back to, you were talking about strategies, and I think we really wanted to sort of bed that down. Strategies that organizations can use in promoting greater inclusion of persons with disabilities. Mr. Olubodi just also gave some personal experiences. Can you give us some more, some practical examples of what organizations can do?
All right, thank you very much. So the first step for every organization to mainstream disability inclusion is to benchmark where are we. And a simple way to doing that is running a bit of what we call a disability audit. Auditing your premises, auditing your HR policies, auditing your communication and ICT infrastructures and policies, as well as auditing and engaging people's knowledge. I think there are tools that does that, and probably we'll put these links that people can, British Council can send it out. ILO has developed a tool to that effect, which is like a self-assessment. An organization can use that online tool to generate it. I think I'll work with ILO on that tool. The second bit to it is the training, cultural transformation. Regardless of across many countries where we've seen this, even when the audit, what is common to many companies is that their staff don't have the culture. They don't understand how to relate or engage with people with disabilities. So what we've tried to do is to say, how do you build the disability confidence of your employees? And that can be done through training. And the best thing we advise companies, and most of these companies that are doing this, is induction. They start putting disability inclusion as part of the induction process when you are coming into the organization. And for those who are already existing in the organization, they kind of ensure people can take trainings on disability inclusion. The third step, you can't do this without learning directly from people with disability. So every organization that I've seen who are doing this, it's not just by saying we want to be more inclusive. You need to learn directly. So simple steps. Start by engaging people with disability, even if it is through graduate management training program, internship, job shadowing. Try to start from there. And with that, you then start having a direct understanding of what it means. Yeah, you've done an audit, which has given you a guide, step-by-step guide of where you are, the weakness and the strength. You've done disability confidence training for your staff. Then the next step is to start learning from the persons with disability. The fourth thing, set a KPI. Who is that senior executives who will be overseeing the issue of disability inclusion across your policies, across your customer care, across your supply chain? Yeah, somebody must be responsible among the senior executives who is able to see and measure the KPI of staff with disabilities and to be able to know what do they need to be able to work better within your organization. The last but not the least option, which is also important, set up an employee resource group. Yeah, when you have opportunity to have few persons with disability in your organization, set up an employee resource group. Let that persons with disability who are in your organization come together and provide options of what they think or how they think the organization can do better. We've seen organizations setting up employee resource group on gender, on safeguarding, on sexual harassment. You can do something similar for on disability. And it's not necessarily it should be people with disability alone. You can have what we call disability ally. Finally, peer learning is very, very important. Every organization will be a different journey in their stage when it comes to disability inclusion. But how do we learn from one another? Luckily, and happy to say this, we have what we call the Nigerian Business and Disability Network in Nigeria. I know I convened that initially, and we've been able to extend that across several countries in Africa. And what the network does is company coming together to say, what are you doing? What can I learn from you? What do we need to do together to change the narrative? The one in Nigeria I know is currently chaired by Access Bank, and I know members including Standard Chartered, MTN, Guinness, and the likes are there. So what is important is also to be part of such network. It's owned by employers, so it's not a civil society network. It's led by private sector. Finding yourself in that space as a private sector employer is very, very fundamental. And what I would say in terms of if we need to move forward and if we need to mainstream disability in the way we do the work, is that we should not see disability from the old archive of disability and disability. I think we have to leave a bit from that because we are not in the 19th or 20th, I mean, we are in the 21st century. We're talking about productivity here. Yeah, and if we replace that ability with productivity and they start thinking, what do I need to do to make employees in my company who have disability to be more productive? What do I need to do? Can I change my perception of people, not just to see people with disability as people who have abilities, but people who can add value and who could be productive within the workspace? I think that is going to be the game changer for every organization as long as we want to start shifting the paradigm to be more inclusive around persons with disability. Back to you, Fabia.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Razak. That was amazing. Great insights. And I just wanted to ask you a last question, and then I'll come to the rest of the panelists and take your sort of final wrap-up statements. I see my timekeeper, but we did lose some time really with all the internet challenges, and we started the roundtable, so I think we can take our time back. This is very important. These are important conversations, and it's great to hear from the panelists, right? Okay. So, Razak, Mike, I'm just curious. Sometimes, with all the things that you sort of rolled out that organizations can do, it seems like it's only the big companies, those that have money, maybe the multinationals. And looking at your your profile is the big companies that you have also been advising. What about the small? Is this applicable to small businesses? You know, can they start? Because they may feel that they don't have the infrastructural capacity or the resources. What do you say when you sort of hear, I'm sure you're not hearing that kind of question for the first time. How would you respond to that? Is this just for the big organizations?
All right, thank you very much.
Or is there space? Yeah.
Yeah, there is space for the smaller organizations as well.
Go ahead, sorry.
So what I would say for smaller organization, what I would say for smaller organization is that take the test, identify what can your current facility take. You might not be able to employ a person who has physical disability today because of your facility, but you might be able to employ somebody with albinism. So start, and if you give excuse, you will find it. If you want a way, you will also find it. Back to you.
Thank you so much. I think that deserves a round of applause, right?
Absolutely.
I think so. Power in those words. So, Lois, hi. It's been a little while, but I'm back to you. We're beginning to wrap up, and so I think it's important that if you could share, for you, what would be a tangible outcome from this conversation? You know, from today's discussion, what would be a key takeaway you want us to leave this room with?
Yeah. Just few words. We must be treated as equals. Include us and allow us to participate actively. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Toby, in the last round of questions, you spoke about your challenges. I wanted to talk about, you know, how you have overcome those challenges. What are the steps you've taken so that other people can learn from that? And, you know, and maybe a little bit about your organization, perhaps what your organization does, how you're building that community, and perhaps what we can do to support.
Okay, so, all right, challenges, you kind of heard all of that. Now let's go to what do you do when you're faced with stereotype? You have two options. You can either get angry or you can educate, right? And I think I've done a bit of both, depending on the audience. There are times where if I think that you should know better and I see you express a very wrong stereotype, I'm going to call you out on it and say, come on, it's 2024, educate yourself. However, we have to do a lot of education because you see, what we don't understand in this part of the world, we stigmatize. We will just give it a name and put it in and just part it aside. So what I've done really to overcome stereotype is you overcome stereotype with education. You can't keep saying they're holding the wrong view about me if you don't come out and show them what the correct view is. And that's what I've done and I continue to do in my organization. So my organization is aptly named the Let Cerebral Palsy Kids Learn Foundation, basically saying children with cerebral palsy should be given the opportunity to learn in the same settings as their typical peers. Because I found out by accident in 2016 that Nigerian schools would turn back children like me at the door. So somebody said yes. Parents would take their children to school like every parent does, and the school would just say, oh, we don't take children like that here. And I said to myself, in a country where we're diagnosing 50,000 children every year with this condition, in 10 years, that's 500,000 people. If we refuse to educate 500,000 people, we're sitting on a keg of gunpowder. Because we do not have a social structure to care for 500,000 people without any value added to the economy. So we must. And the truth is, we can talk about employment all we want. For businesses, it is about the bottom line. So no business, no matter how nice they want to be, will employ somebody with a disability that does not qualify. So if we do not mainstream education, these organizations that we are making very conscious of disability will run out of people to employ. So it's important, and that's what we do, is to build a community of the next generation of children with cerebral palsy that would demystify the assumption that cerebral palsy is an intellectual disability and will take their place in the workforce, wherever they choose to take it. I have kids already who are telling me they want to be models. They're already modeling. I'm like, okay, make your money. I have kids who are telling me I want to be pilots. Have at it. Somebody's telling me I want to be a medical doctor. Please enjoy. I'm not saying everybody needs to become a lawyer, but you must be given the opportunity to chase whatever you want to chase, and on your own terms and in your own way. And like Razak said, if we want to find an excuse, we will find it. If we want to find a way, we will. People ask me all the time, oh, but you know, a lot of these children cannot talk like you. So how are we supposed to educate them? I'm like, 70% of communication is nonverbal. So we can't educate somebody without speech, please. Oh, the child cannot write. So how many things are you writing in longhand in 2024? Give the child a tablet. Oh, the child cannot even sit up. I don't have to sit up to learn. If I'm lying on my bed, I've taken online courses by lying on my bed all day. So please, there's something called...
Where there's a will, there's a way.
There's a will, you will find a way. But we need to find a way to ensure that education is taking place, or else all these organizations will run out of people to employ in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Dolapo, we're wrapping up. I wanted to just, ask you this, because again, we're talking about what organizations can do, right? And you often allude to the fact that, I think, is it 11 years? You continued to work for your organization for 11 years, even after your diagnosis. Can you just share how they supported you, that enabled you, to be able to do that?
Thank you. So I was a qualified engineer. It was the early 2000s. It was when telecom was starting out in Nigeria. Were not too many ladies anyway. And already in mid-management, within a year and a half, identified for leadership pipeline. So when I came to say that this was my circumstance, they were willing to do the journey with me. What I would just say is that, and how did they do the journey with me? They allowed me to define the phases of what I could cope with. Like I said, musical mics. And this mic goes bust too. Okay, so I'll just keep trying.
Can we hear her?
Can you? Are you on mic?
I think all the mics.
Hello, hello.
They're all off.
Just go. Teacher
Okay.
Exactly.
Easier teacher. This is what we do because we're educating all the time.
Yeah, I said easier teacher.
This one. For the benefit of... Okay. For the benefit of... So I'll try... Oh, okay, we're back. So now I can't scream anymore. Okay, so they allowed me to manage my disclosure pattern. You can understand it was not anything I signed up for. I was devastated, but being able to work and be in a space that rewarded performance was very helpful. So you can imagine that I immersed. In fact, I was almost manic in the way I chose to work. It became important to me to see value in me, even though this critical part of what was typical for me was now gone for life. It was my family and friends that saw the other disoriented, angry, bitter, fearful side of me. But at work, I was one of the best professionals that you could find. So, of course, HR knew, my line manager knew, I was allowed to manage who else knew. Okay. So that was respectful of my journey, right? And then another thing, because I was already part of mid-management, I was already leading teams. I was really good. I'd moved from being on the field to being in the office leading teams. So they put me in the spaces of my strength. I could very easily coordinate and do very well with making sure we had excellent outcomes from the field because it was what I'd done before. So I not only continued to work in Nigeria, I went to launch networks in 3 other countries with my impairment, returned to Nigeria in 2012. I was put to have oversight of 15 countries of sub-Saharan Africa. They did not need me to see. They just needed to make sure the things in my care were done with excellence. So at work, all of us have KPIs, right? And then all of us try to, what's that KPI? You try to...
exceed expectation.
No, before exceed expectation. There's the meet expectation. But, and then there's now exceed expectation. Then there's now outstanding. People like us were looking for outstanding because already with the interactions that were there, people were always going to judge you. So do what you need to do to get the results you want. What I would just say again to, look, employers, you're so worried about talents, because it's talents you'll be bringing on board, not just a person with an impairment. No, it's a talent who's bringing value to your organization. Sometimes we're so worried about talents joining us that you do not know that life could be happening within to some of your best hands. How do they feel like they belong? How do they feel safe to speak up so that they can continue to add value to your organization? And I think in the end, in the bottom line of where everyone is allowed to actively contribute in your space of strength. Isn't that why we have teams? Isn't that why we have teams? In the team member, everybody's bringing their strengths. Let everyone bring strength forward. Then we would move just beyond acknowledging diversity, providing equitable ways for all of us to participate, to ticking the box of inclusion, and we will truly have what is most important, which is belonging. Because if you don't feel like you belong, you will not be able to bring your best. And that's the big challenge I want to drop the mic with.
And drop the mic she has. Thank you very much. Thanks, Dolakwo. Thank you. And to you, sir, what would be, your final closing statements from your perspective? What would you like this audience to take away?
All right. Thank you very much. There's this story about the bumblebee that is big, the wings are small, and scientifically the bumblebee is not supposed to be able to fly. Unfortunately, the bumblebee does not understand the science languages. The thing will just lift up and fly. I want to speak to people living with disability. You need to go beyond all the rhetorics, all the stereotypes, all the name callings, all the wrong languages, and fly. You need to know you can do more. You need to know that you can go far and farther than this. There's more in you than you can imagine. What this world needs are people that we add value. In the way you are, add value. And interestingly, over time, I've discovered that people living with disability, they sort of have this superhero type of thing about them. They can adapt. They can, very resilient. When I came in, the first thing I looked was this podium. I said, oh, it's high. And my head was just thinking, how are you going to get up? That is going to be steep. All right, you try. That's the way we think. Every other person got here and sat down. But I was just scanning everywhere around and say, how am I going to move? And you see, where I worked, the first place where I worked, National Population Commission, God helped me that it was the same thing. I was put at a very tight point, and I just asked myself, how would you do it? An idea started coming, and I introduced it to the work I was doing, and I was getting promoted. So please, never look down yourself as someone living with disability. And as an employer of labor, if you're looking for committed, dependable, reliable people that you can employ, I tell you, they are in the community of people living or people with disability. I tell you, they are so reliable. Just tell them 1, 2, 3, and they will give you 4, 5, 6, 7, and you'll be so satisfied. So if you have not been employing them, you have unfortunately been shortchanging yourself. And lastly, in the lighter mood, we are in the season of Japa. The percentage of people living with disability that have Japa is far lower than the able-bodied people. Very soon, every able-bodied person will Japa and then you come back to us.
Here, here. Thank you so much. Thank you. We've heard a lot, and I think it's not an exhaustive conversation, but we also want to give the opportunity to the audience to also ask the panelists some questions. So I think we're moving into, we already had some contributions even before the panel started, but please, we want to involve you in the conversation. So can I kick off with a roundtable, flow into that? How long do we have? 30 minutes for the roundtable? Okay. That's quite, well, so we are, no, I didn't think so. That's quite a long time. 20 minutes. Okay. So I'm just moderating the flow. So I was going to say we are here. But we are here, and I hope Razak is still online, to interact, take your questions, anything that you have possibly heard that you would like the panelists to sort of, speak more about. Any thoughts that you have to add to the conversation that we've been having today. The theme is inspiring inclusion for Africa's super women, because it's Women's Month, but men as well, and people with disabilities across the board. So do we have some contributions in the house? Any questions? Okay, can I have help with the mic? I see 3 hands up already, 2 ladies in front, and a gentleman at the back, another lady. There are 4 hands up. I think the way the hands went up were the 2 ladies in front, the gentleman at the back, and then the lady on the side of the room. That's how I saw it. Hey, Razak, I hope you're still online. You're not following my order. Sorry, there are 2 ladies in front here. Yes. Madam, okay, you could start with you, and then you come to the front.
Okay, I'm so happy to be here this afternoon. My name is Fola Shade Salimono. I'm a broadcast journalist. I work with Lagos Television. I produce, I present programs. I am, to God's glory, the Assistant Director of Programs Department, Lagos Television. And thank you. I'm so happy to be here today. A lot has been said, but I just want to say that it is important that everybody, both the employer and the employees, with disabilities or without disabilities, should put themselves in the shoes of persons with disabilities to ensure inclusion in all that you do. As an employer, it is important that you fish out persons with disabilities that are capable, that can do the job. Now, Razak said something about abilities and disabilities. We have to reframe it in this time and age. Now, everybody, we all do have one, we all have our potentials, we have our strengths and weaknesses, and it's important that we highlight, our strength, even as persons with disabilities, and see how that person can function to contribute to the growth and development of where he or she is. It is very important. Now, I don't have to be physically present in the office to do all that I need to do. I might just be the brain behind a particular idea that contributes positively to that organization. As a person with disability over the years, I was in AIT for 5 years as a news editor. I moved to Lagos Television 2008. And when I got there, I tried I was in news, before I was posted to programs. Now, my employers, because it is important you also speak out as a person with disability. You let them know what you can do and how you can do it and become effective. They discovered that I can do a lot of enlightenment about disability. I tell editors, I say, see, we no longer use that phrase, living with disability. It is persons with disability. Recognize the personality of that person and the functionality of that person. So you don't just give it a tag. So now, they recognize that fact that I'm good in documentaries, I have programs that I can do, promos and all that. So that is my strength, and I walk in that line to the glory of God. Now, as a person with disability, it is important that you voice out, you speak out, because most times your employer don't know how to even go about your matter. Sometimes they're afraid, sometimes it is ignorance, sometimes they just feel, oh, leave her alone, don't let us disturb her. We are going for a tour. It will take time before we pack up the wheelchair. It takes time. You talk about transport, you talk about movement, you talk about how to fix your wheelchair, maintain things, your medication, and blah, blah, blah. And there are co-mobilities too. You can be physically challenged and you are hypertensive. You can be physically challenged and you are working with some other ailments. So it is important to voice out. To God's glory, in Lagos Television today, we are one of the stations that started sign language, because I was one of those that pushed. Some people didn't believe in it. They feel, how are we going to go about it? We don't have the technology and all that. But today, we are one of the TV stations that, do sign language to carry our deaf community along.
Sorry, I need you to wrap up, ma.
Parking space is another thing.
I need to give the opportunity to others.
To other people.
Thank you.
So please, just put yourself in the shoe of that person and see how you can help and make things better, to have a better relationship. Thank you very much.
Excellent contribution. Thank you so much. The lady in front, please. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Grace again. First to commend the panelists. You guys are rock stars. Mind-blowing conversation. And to also extend our appreciation to British Council, I think we should sustain such conversations, because people would not read this in book. I'm telling you the fact. Even if you put $1 bill in between this very beautiful report that would come out of this, some people might not even open it to read and know what to do. But when you hold conversations like this, they listen, they are taking notes, and it sticks. So they are going back to their places of work. They are, going back into the society to just go tell other people about it. So the more we hold forums like this, I think the better to quickly send these messages across. To mention also that, when we're looking at employability of the community of persons with disabilities, it's important that as little as the setup of a stage like this, the input of people with disabilities in it is very important. We recently worked on what is called the National Accessibility Standard. And the National Accessibility Standard has dimensions, has measurements, has patterns, has different type of designs that you could think of how you modify your workspace to accommodate a person with disability. There's nothing wrong with either checking on our websites or reaching out to find out, are these things available? We're trying to build a stage. We're trying to modify our workspace. Do we have an accessibility standard that we can use? This tool was developed by persons with disabilities, for persons with disabilities, for organizations like yours. So it's important that you consult. Secondly, when you talk about technology in the workspace, if you are employing persons with disabilities, it's not just enough to tick the box to say, I have a person with disability working in my organization. Are there reasonable accommodation to make me as a person with disability function optimally? Those are the questions. And this accessibility standard also provides for that. There are tech organizations in Nigeria that you don't even have to go overseas to get consultation with. We have, Emanuela and her husband seated in the room who are tech gurus. You can leverage on people within the country, within your reach. These are people with disabilities, providing solutions for the community of persons with disabilities. You can work with such people. Like what you are looking for in Sokoto is right in your Sokoto. If you, borrowing from the Yoruba people, So tap into, the resources that are available. And within the community of persons with disabilities, while we're looking at employment, we're also ready to work with you to make your environment ready for people with disabilities to work. So don't employ because you want to tick the box. Employ because you need them to add value to your organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was an amazing contribution. Thank you. I think there's a gentleman at the back, just behind you, yes?
Oh, okay. Well, okay. I think I talk better when I stand, I think. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Okpeoluwa Akinola, and I'm the CEO of Access Tech Innovation and Research, GTE Ltd. I think an assistive technology company, probably the only one that has an assistive technology experience center in Africa. And I have listened. I am actually a disability expert. I studied disability. I did disability studies up to master's level, and I'm a person with lived experience of disability. So all the conversation today has been entering me, and I've been digesting, and I just want to add a few things to what has been discussed. The first thing, we talk about corporate organizations, but there is no organization that is not made of individuals. And Toby said something that we should not overlook. Stereotypes. That's consciousness of bias. Every one of us must be conscious of our biases, even persons with disability. So when you see somebody, try and tell yourself, I don't have to judge this person. That's it. But apart from that, what I do in my life, I found out that women with disabilities are grossly disadvantaged right from childhood. Our culture, by culture, people don't want to spend as much money on a girl child as a male child educating the person. Now, when that girl now has a disability, it becomes a minus because, again, in certain parts of Nigeria, money is spent on girls because they believe that the more developed a girl is, the higher the bride price she will fetch. But when you see a girl with disability, you don't expect that she will get married, so the bride price issue doesn't come in. Anyway, so what we do is try and build the capacity of persons with disabilities in our organization. And currently, we are working on a project. We identified this issue of women with disabilities in the workplace. The reason why many women are not working is because they don't have capacity. And capacity is not just going to school for a person with disabilities. If I have a degree in mass communication as a person with disability, and I go into a radio station as a blind person, let's say, to edit the news, I don't know how to use a computer. It's going to be a problem because I cannot share resources with my colleagues in the office. So for us, we are moving disability from that stage when we begin to assume that persons with disabilities have everything. You employ them. But how do you do it? So what our organization does, we do innovations and research around disability. We've done a lot of consulting. I think Razak mentioned a couple of organizations, and he will say we provided the technical expertise to ensure that those processes were done. And we are still doing it. But we are aware again, like the girls are disadvantaged. So please, let us think about education. How do girls get into school from the beginning? Because when they have education, that is the basics. Then we can build on that and give them the other competencies that will put them in the workplace productively.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for the great work they're doing. I think we can only take probably one more contribution. And I believe your hand was up first. Sorry, there's a lady here in white. Please, indicate. Can the mic come to her? She's up. Who's with the mic?
Actually, raised my own sense.
No, sorry, she did first.
You didn't say it.
I didn't see it, I apologize, but this is the person who I saw.
Okay.
I think he did? Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, sorry, my view was obscured.
No, it's okay.
So that will be our last comment. There are others. Please, does the conversation continue? And I think there'll be networking, so please, find those who you want to address your question, your comment to. Or can we take more than one? Two? Okay, so it will be you next, madam, in white. And then we'll wrap up. Please limit your comment to 2 minutes, please. Thank you, sir.
Everybody. Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Taiwo, the CEO of Disabled People Leadership Initiative. My boss is actually on the panel. That's Madam Lois. Coincidentally, we both contested in 2019. And I'm actually talking about women in leadership and workspace and politics, basically. And one thing I realize is During my electionary process in 2019, I realized that most women had conversations on the gender and the disability. And unfortunately, according to INEC data, we have just about less than 15% persons living with disability. So when you center your campaign on that, you have automatically to change yourself. So that's one aspect. Then on the other aspect is, on the aspect of employment, I've been someone that has had issues with employment time and time again. Unfortunately, even one of the most multinational banks denied me employment and lying rather than accepting that they were not going to accept me because of my disability based on the job description. However, having said that, I think conversations must go beyond just employment, and then civil society and legal framework must be actually put in place for organizations that deny, not only deny, but also malign persons living with disability. And I know what I'm saying. I just left an organization about 8 months ago, and I had a very wonderful experience with my boss. My instinct actually told me not to actually accept the job, but I did because I just wanted to, because the chairman of the company at that time recommended me fully. I had to go through about 4 different interview process after the main interview by the MD, because he never trusted my capacity because I was a disabled person. And it actually and eventually turned out that it frustrated me and then allowed me to go. But that being said, I think there should be legal framework around this so that this conversation shouldn't just end in just talking. And finally, I realized that when women win, I think my humble opinion is, I think more of this should be more vocal, because I went through your social media pages and I saw very less engagement. And you guys are doing a lot of things here, and people need to hear it outside. Thank you.
Yeah. So then, everyone, my name is Miriam Adenuga. I have a couple of questions. First, thank you to the British Council for organizing this. I think this topic is not something that is widely known about. Lots of people don't know about the challenges that people with disabilities face. I think it's something that should even be spread to other people apart from the people in this room. I know most of the people in this room know about this topic. Anyway, I'm sorry. So I have a couple of questions actually for the panelists. First, with Razak. Razak was talking about in terms of businesses. So I remember asking someone working with an edtech company about including or making arrangement for children living with disabilities and including them in their teaching or education. And he was saying something about how it's going to take a lot for the business in terms of money. They're going to spend a lot, and how much are they going to get in terms of revenue? So, I mean, businesses, they think about money, so how does it, like, why should they do that? So I was going to ask around that, like, how would you convince a business to include children or people living with disabilities in what they're doing? Then, I don't know if I should ask.
Yes, the second
everything.
one.
Okay.
Just 2 questions.
Okay. Yes, I was still around businesses. I was also thinking around, because I know you mentioned people with disabilities can work from home, but there are people living with disabilities that actually want to go to work physically. So in terms of, I think we shouldn't just limit them to work from home. How do we make workspaces accessible, and even the roads to get there, transport services, how should we make those things accessible for those, because people don't want to work from home all the time. And then
I think that's fine. Thank you. So I don't know if Razak is still online. But then, yes, but I think Toby can respond. So I think making the business case for EdTech, and then there was, And then the second was general accessibility infrastructure, which we can all contribute to.
On the EdTech side of things, if you ask them, they haven't done any research. They're telling you based on assumption. I work in education, and every single time you're talking to a school about inclusion, they'll tell you it's expensive. And when you ask them, list the cost, they can't. Because they've never checked what the costs are. They've just made an assumption. It goes back to the issue of stereotypes. They've just stereotyped it, and they're running with it. So the thing is this. You're going to tell them to show you what the cost is, and then you do a cost-benefit analysis. The truth is, when I'm working with businesses, I'm not talking about rights. I'm talking about, look, this is business case. This is money on the table that you're leaving. I tell schools, I say, look, there are over 1 million children with cerebral palsy that are looking for school admission today. If only half of them want to go to school, let's even say the other half, their parents have said these ones are useless to us, so we're not educating them. Even if it's just half, that's money you are leaving on the table if you don't make those facilities available. And that's how you make a business case for the EdTech. You show them the money that's been left on the table, because 70% of the out-of-school children in Nigeria are children with disabilities. And that's a market they can tap into. So when you show them that, that cost-benefit analysis, then you can get them to actually think more about investing that money, because it's going to come back in returns. And then when you talk about people who don't want to work from home, who actually want to go into the office, it's about, and you were right, the issues are numerous. It's the access to even go get from your house to the office. First of all, where's the public infrastructure? I mean, Lagos State says they have BRTs, and BRTs are free for people with disabilities. However, how do I get from my house to the BRT bus stop? Right? Because, I have to get to the BRT bus stop to actually access the free BRT. So how do I get from my house, to that point? So those are the things that we need to think about. So what I've done is to always make sure that when I'm employing, especially when I'm thinking to employ someone with a disability, I check to make sure that they live in close proximity to the location of the office. Because I even don't want them to work fully remote. I understand the impact on your mental health when you can't leave your house. It's a different thing when you choose not to leave your house. But when you can't leave your house because the environment is not accessible to you, the impact on your mental health is terrible. So I usually think in terms of proximity when I'm employing, so that they don't have to cross too many hurdles to get to the physical location of the office. So that might be something that we might want to look into. And the truth is that people with disabilities are adaptable. We will figure it out. Don't worry about it. If I tell you I can do a job, trust me, I read that JD from top to bottom 5 times. So if I tell you that I can do it, I'll figure out how to do it. Don't worry about how I'll get it.
Thank you. I don't know if any of the panelists want to add anything. 1 minute.
Yes. Maybe the thing to also add, and Tobias set it, conversations don't assume. There's already value, and that's why you're even having the conversation of onboarding, right? Ask them how they figure it, how they want it to be done. Mr. Kola alluded to that, about how he informed his organization. He arrived, he checked what they were doing, he provided suggestions of how he, with his impairment, will be able to deliver on whatever mandate he was doing over there, and they accommodated it. It's always going to be a conversation. Never assume, let people, again, I would also say that in reality, some of us, and I speak to my community, yes, we can bring some ideas that might not be, they might be excessive. Also have the conversation about how that's not doable now. And let's see what's the midway. Again, conversation, dialogue will always be the way.
Thank you. And I think I can thank the audience now for your engagement, your participation, and your contributions. Thank you very much. They were very insightful. And thank you for staying the course. I'd like to thank my panelists. I was going to summarize. I hope someone was taking notes. I know it's been recorded. Should I attempt a summary or should I keep it moving? Attempt a summary, okay. We've had fantastic conversations today. We've talked about the unique barriers that women with disabilities face. We've talked about the barriers that people with disabilities face generally, but we've also honed in on the unique disabilities that women face. And that includes attitudinal barriers, it includes infrastructural barriers, it includes healthcare barriers, and it includes educational barriers. Lois spoke about moving from charity to a human rights-based approach. We also heard about the importance of making severally the business case, incorporating both the human rights approach as the basic framework, but making that business case the bottom line when it comes to businesses. Language, the language of inclusion is important, but the best way to get it right is to ask. In terms of taking actions, we have to be deliberate and intentional, especially in our hiring and our recruitment processes. I think Mr. Olubodi spoke about showcasing and spotlighting as one way of, also, sharing the stories of people with disabilities and what they have achieved and what they can do. We've learned in terms of policy about the Disability Act. A member of our audience contributed and shared with us the national accessibility standards. So there are quite a number of policies out there. We need to make a commitment to educate ourselves. Training, I think Razak mentioned in terms of what we can do as businesses, starting from the basis of a disability audit, training as well, and cultural transformations within our organizations, setting, and I think Dolapo confirmed this, having disability champions within our organizations, mainstreaming education, someone spoke about that. Preparing even the community for opportunities, including upscaling them with things like technology to enable them be even more employable. Being ready to work with, when we do embark on that journey as organizations, be ready to work with the beneficiaries, and I apologize if that's not the right word, but be ready to work with them through the various phases of the journey. Make no assumptions. For employers, make less assumptions. For employees, speak out. There's more, but I'm sure.
Well done.
But I'm sure the British Council and when we'll put a communique together and share, the rest with all of us. The conversations continues. It's not exhaustive. But I want to thank my esteemed panelists, Lois, Toby, Dolapo, Kola, and of course Razak, for really sharing their insights with us today. It's been fantastic. I want to thank the British Council and When Women Win for the opportunity and for this conversation. And it's been a delight and to really host this panel and to learn. Thank you all so much.
I've met Mr. Tunji from my friend in Kiru, who had in She used to work with him. Yes. So I know about your family. You are a powerful family. I think I should. I feel like I should come and stand. Yeah.
Which of the cameras are we looking at? You?
So just to say thank you to everyone who made time to be here. But I think one thing important would also like to share. Hello. Years. We've made some mistakes, we've learned, we've developed some resources, and we do have access to certain things that we're happy to share. One of the things that was mentioned was the need to collaborate and work together. So please, this is just the start of the conversation, and would like to ensure that what we've learned along the journey, we can also share with other people. That's what would make us accelerate progress in this area. But thank you, everyone, and it's great that everyone has already started talking to each other, but let it not end here. Thank you.